So good evening, everybody. I guess as we get my presentation pulled up, I'll just introduce myself again. Thanks for the invite. Jackie DeBattista. I'm the executive director at Farmers Rising, which is a local nonprofit that works to build sustainable local food and farm systems. We have 2 locations in the area. We are based in Caledonia, Illinois, which is kind of a rural town outside of Roscoe, if you haven't been up to visit us. So that's our main campus. It's located in Caledonia, so we exist on shared property with Angelic Organics Farm, as well as across the street. We have a facility, which is an overnight lodge facility, plus a 70-acre field and farm and forest and stream and beautiful property that we manage up there. And then we also have an urban farm in Rockford, which is located at Black Hawk Courts, which is a Rockford Housing Authority community here in Rockford. And we work closely in partnership with that community. So I'm also a local regenerative farmer. So I run a farm in Pecatonica. We have 200 acres, about 140 acres of which are in some sort of sustainable production, whether that's organically managed hay crop or rotationally grazed fields. We raise grass-fed beef, sell it direct to consumers, and we utilize about approximately like 45 acres or so. We divide the fields into temporary paddocks and rotate our cattle through each paddock for 2 to 3 days at a time in the summer months. And so we'll talk a little bit more about regenerative farming as we move forward. Brad invited me to speak about sustainable and regenerative farming and kind of the state of it in the state of Illinois, which is a large task. And not a lot of time, 15 minutes. So I'm gonna, I kind of divided this into 3 sections. I'm gonna talk a little bit about just kind of general agricultural statistics in the state of Illinois. I'm gonna talk about the importance of local and regenerative farming to all of us. And then I'm gonna talk at the end just kind of more specifically about the work that we do at Farmers Rising. So if that works with you. So unfortunately, I was thinking about having a clicker and I didn't bring my clicker. So there's kind of some animations. You might have to do a lot of clicking, unfortunately, Brad. So yeah, you're gonna get a finger workout. So okay, you can move forward. So I just wanted to say that a couple years ago, I gave kind of a similar talk about Farmers Rising to a local group. And within that, I was talking about an upcoming kind of local farm dinner that we were hosting that was a fundraiser for our organization. And I was talking about how at Farmers Rising, all of our events, all of our community programs that we offer, when we provide food to people, we do our best to ensure that the majority of the ingredients are sourced locally. So we support local farmers as much as possible. And so I was saying, we were basically holding a farm to fork event. And a gentleman kind of raised his hand and said, I get a little bit irritated when I hear people promote kind of farm to fork as kind of this big thing, because isn't all food farm to fork? And in reality, that's exactly right? Like all of the food that we eat, 95% of the food that we eat starts on somebody's farm, right? It starts being produced on a farm. And so in reality, in the big picture, all food that we eat is farm to fork. But there is a lot of reasons why we want to shorten that path from the farm to the fork, and that's what we're going to kind of focus on tonight, so you can move forward. So Illinois data. So if you want to go to the first one, so over 75% of our land is dedicated to agriculture in Illinois. In the southern part of the state, there's a lot of forested regions. But as we know, we are surrounded by agricultural communities in this state. Next point. We are the #1 producer of soybeans in the entire nation. We are in the top states for producing corn. We produce 15% of all soybeans, 13% of all corn. And we're also the 4th largest producer of swine, pork products. A lot of people know that we're the #1 producer of pumpkin. Some people don't know that. But we produce over 90% of pumpkin that is in the cans that maybe you buy, right? So the food pumpkin that you might eat at Thanksgiving time and in other meals. And we are also the top producer of horseradish, which is really random, and I think a lot of people don't realize that, right? So Over 50% of the horseradish that is grown in the United States is grown in Illinois. So this is all interesting, right? It proves that we have some real moxie as farmers in Illinois. You can go to the next point. Illinois, I would say maybe a little bit more on the maybe negative bent, is that we're home to over 2,600 food manufacturing companies, in the next point. And we rank first in the nation with $180 billion in processed food sales. And so this, when we're talking about sustainability, when we're talking about health outcomes, when we're talking about local food economies, this is actually not a great thing for Illinois to have, is kind of be the first in processed food sales. And I think that that's kind of borne out in some of our health outcomes, right? So the type of farming that leads to processed food, right? The type of farming, so industrialized produced food, such as, soybeans, field corn, confined animal concentration, confined animal feeding operations, et cetera. It leads to soil degradation and loss. It leads to decimation of pollinators. It leads to climate crisis. It leads to polluted water sources, polluted air sources, and it contributes to negative human health. And it also just creates, it weakens our relationships, I would say, in our communities. So there's one more point on that slide, Brad. So we rank, and this is kind of borne out in the data, that we rank 27th in public health outcomes in 2024. So, processed food contributes to obesity, it contributes to type 2 diabetes, it contributes to heart disease, et cetera, right? We could go on and on and on. So it's really important for us to shorten that pathway between the field and our fork, and buy more locally produced goods, which are less processed and which support local farmers. The food dollars stay in our economy, and the majority of those farming practices are better for our natural environment. So we can move forward. So at Farmers Rising, we love all farmers. All of our farmers embody a lot of the qualities that we hold up, right, in our country as desirable. They're hard workers, they're dedicated, they're resilient, they're community-minded, right? They're both kind of, we can be kind of negative, but we're also eternal optimists, right? We have to be if we're going to continue to face and deal with all of the issues that we have to deal with and still produce a crop, whether they're weather-based, things that are out of our control, market-based, et cetera. So we love farmers, and also we recognize at Farmers Rising that something has to change, right, to protect our food supply, to protect our natural resources, and to protect our collective health. So go ahead. You might just have to, yeah. So, okay, this is a little bit of audience participation. Brad did this earlier. So I just kind of want to get a sense in the room. So how many people here when you're thinking about the food that you produce for yourselves, that you eat every day, how much of that food, how many of you think that 5% of the food is purchased locally from a farmer who you may know, right? Or at a farmer's market, for example, something like this. Or produced by yourself, exactly. So 5% of your diet. So raise your hand a little bit. So a few people. Okay, so the next one is 10%. Does anyone feel like 10% or more? Yeah, so a few of us, right? And I don't even know that I can claim 10% of my food being a local food farmer, right? I don't think I can claim 10% of my daily nutritional needs are produced by local farmers, right? So how many of us here, if prepping a holiday meal, just on a special occasion, go first to a farmer that we know to source ingredients before we head to the grocery store to finish that out? Do we have a lot of people that do this? Yeah, so maybe a little bit more. That's a special occasion, right? We want the top quality ingredients, et cetera. That's great. Okay, next one. What are some of the products that we find in our community that are easiest to source locally? So I'm just curious, like those of you that raised your hands. Meats, okay, great. What were you gonna say?
So just, yeah, all the vegetables that you plant yourself. I have a couple of huge raised beds, so, and the farmers markets are all over, so, yeah.
Yes,
But
awesome.
that's, the nice time.
Seasonal.
It's like 6 months of that. and then,
Yes.
yeah.
Good. Anything else that we haven't heard? Vegetables?
I also grow hydroponics in the backyard.
Awesome. Great. Honey? Yes, absolutely. I heard sweet corn. Someone said sweet corn. Anyone else? Pumpkin. Yes.
I raise my tomatoes in the summertime and I get local honey.
Awesome. That's great. Eggs are a big one as well, right? Like local eggs, that you just can't beat them. They're the best. So fantastic. That's wonderful to hear. Okay, how many of us, next one, consider ourselves living in an agricultural community? So how many of us feel like we are in an agricultural community or surrounded by agricultural communities in Rockford? Yeah, so kind of similar to what Brad said earlier about the Severson event coming up, farming doesn't only exist in rural areas, right? Farming also exists in urban spaces. There are actually a lot of urban farmers in Rockford. If you grow yourself, like there's obviously lots of gardeners in Rockford, but when you consider a farmer, someone who sells more than $1,000 worth of product, right? That's the definition of a farmer. So it's a low bar. A lot of people can become farmers and try your hand at it. But Rockford is an agricultural community, and obviously our surrounding areas are agricultural communities as well. And so that's a really wonderful thing. It's also a little bit of a challenge because I think in this area, because we are surrounded by farms, we feel a little bit more food secure than we actually are. So moving to the next slide, please. You can go with the next one. So as I mentioned before, the number of stops that your food makes between a farmer's field and your plate matters. And the type of production system that a farmer utilizes also matters. And we're going to go through kind of why it matters. And so buying local, regeneratively produced food is the best way to, one of the best ways, right? Like not the best way, but some of the best ways to first of all, economically support our farmers and farm workers in the region. And also socially support our farmers and farm workers in the region. So there is a large mental health crisis with farmers. Farming is isolating. They kind of say you're kind of married to the farm. You're stuck on the farm producing a lot of times. It's hard work. It's challenging. There's a lot of things that are out of your control. And farmers get isolated. And so by buying locally, you can support them economically. The other piece of data that's interesting is for every dollar of food that you purchase at the grocery store, for example, only 15 cents of that dollar goes into the farmer's pocket. The rest of that goes to the processors, to the transporters, to the marketers, right, to all of the other people who are involved in our food system, and only 15 cents of that dollar stays with the farmer. So by shortening that distance, by buying directly from the farmer, they are able to retain a much higher level of that dollar for themselves that they can reinvest in their farm, that they can support their family with. And so economically and socially supporting farmers is extremely important. Buying local, regeneratively produced foods can ensure humane livestock conditions, right? You can see how the animals are raised and support that. At Farmers Rising, we raise animals, and our community program educators tell people when they come that these animals will be eaten, right? So we raise pigs, and we bring youth to see the pigs. And it's really a hard conversation to say, like, they're super cute, we're interacting with them, and one day they are going to end up on somebody's plate, right? But the pigs that we raise at Farmers Rising have one bad day versus pigs that are raised in confined animal systems whose everyday existence is a bad day, right? And so there is a difference, both for the animals, for the humane handling, as well as for the environment. Yes?
Can you just define regeneratively produced?
Excuse me?
Can you define regeneratively produced?
Yes, I'm going to define that in the next slide, I believe. So it's coming, yes. So regenerative is kind of a newer term, right? So It's kind of used interchangeably with sustainable, but I guess I'll define it real quickly right now. So regenerative farming, so when you talk about sustainable farming, I can step onto a farm today, and the soil may be somewhat degraded, and I can produce there for 10, 20 years. I can, take care of it. And if I step off of it in 20 years and it's at the exact same condition as I started, that's sustainable. I sustained it. But regeneration is what we're after. We're trying to regenerate soil first and foremost, which is the basis of all. And so regenerative farming is improving the system. And so there's a continuum to regenerative farming. The other nice thing about regenerative farming, why I prefer that term to other terms, is that it is a continuum. All farmers can be more regenerative. All farmers can implement practices that move them up that ladder of regenerative farming that betters the soil and ultimate health of the farm. Whereas things like organic is you're either organic or you're not, right? Like you are or you're not. And so regenerative offers a solution to all farmers. All farmers can be more regenerative. So buying local and regeneratively produced food maximizes your food quality and the flavor. You're getting more nutrient-dense food. You are getting fresher food. It's been picked more recently. It tastes better. So it's just a higher quality product all around. Next one, please, Brad. Sorry that you're having to be like this. Regeneratively produced food and locally produced food protects the environment and mitigates climate crisis. So we'll talk about kind of the regenerative practices in a second, but you'll see how improving soil, carbon capture, keeping carbon in the soil is a mitigating factor and the answer to climate change if we can implement this on large scale. Local food improves our health. It improves the health through like reducing pollution. It also improves our health through nutrient-dense foods. And revives community and relationships. I already talked about this, but it brings people together. So when you support local food, you're coming together. So you're improving those social connections. And then finally, it bolsters our food security. And so this is a big one as well. Next slide, please. So even though it doesn't often feel like it, every single one of us in this room is food insecure. There is obviously more severity, right? So some people are more food insecure than others. Many people in our community don't know where their next meal is going to come from. Many people in our community don't have access to fresh food. They don't have supermarkets in their neighborhoods, et cetera, right? So there are people who are chronically food insecure in our community. And then the rest of us who are not chronically food insecure are also food insecure because we are one step away, right, from not having food on our table. And this was proved to us during the pandemic. So 5 years ago when the pandemic hit and all of these supply chains were disrupted, what happened? Our grocery store shelves were empty. And then what did the consumers do? They turned to the local farmers in panic. I had people calling me that I had never heard from before that wanted to buy a whole cow, and I mean, just people coming out of the woodwork. It was crazy, and all tons of local farmers had just dramatically increased sales, right? And at the time we were like, this is it. This is our moment. This is our moment in local food production. People understand now. They finally understand the importance of the local farmers. They're going to support us. They understand. And guess what? 5 years later, here we are. And people are kind of back. We got back into our old habits, and we're relying on the grocery store again. And all it takes is one disruption to get us right back there, right? And if you look at this list of disruptions, do any of those feel worrisome? Do any of those feel like something that's happening right now, right? All of this is something that can happen right now, is happening right now. All of us are really one step away from being food insecure. So supporting our local farmers and making sure that that there are more, first of all, more local farmers producing food, and that the farmers who exist can increase their production is extremely important to all of us. So go ahead. So regenerative farming, we're getting there now. So soil is the foundation of life. 95% of the food that we eat is produced in soil. There are some hydroponics. Obviously, there's food that's coming out of the oceans, fish, things like that, right? But healthy soils are crucial for maintaining clean water supplies and for mitigating climate change. And as FDR once said, the nation that destroys its soil destroys itself. And yet here we are, how many years later, and we're still not protecting our soil resource. So there's a lot of different principles, there's a lot of different practices in regenerative farming, but there's kind of top 5 principles of regenerative farming. And so we're gonna go through those real quick here. So regenerative farmers try to minimize the physical, biological, and chemical disturbance of soil. So remove or dramatically reduce reliance upon chemicals, and no tillage, so you're leaving that biological structure of the soil intact, you're not disturbing it. Keep the soil covered with vegetation and natural materials, so that's cover cropping, no-till agriculture, right, that people do that leaves like corn stalks and things in place. That's a regenerative practice. I would argue it's not enough, but it is absolutely important and something. Increasing plant diversity, so stepping away from monocropping and ensuring that there are multiple species being grown on farms at the same time. Keeping living roots in the soil as much as possible, so reliance upon cover cropping, perennial agriculture. There are ways in which you can plant a cover crop and you can crimp it instead of tilling it in. And then you leave a mat on the soil, it snuffs out the weeds, right? You plant into that and you're leaving those roots intact. And then finally, integrating animals into the farm as much as possible. And so bringing animal agriculture back onto the farm so that the nutrients can be cycled, so that you have a closed loop nutrient cycle on farms. For urban farms, compost, right? Compost is the answer in urban farms where we, cannot have animal agriculture in urban areas, but we have compost, right? We've got Jesse over here with Nettle, right? You can sign up for Nettle and compost your food, and then the local farmers have access to that to bring nutrients onto their urban farms. We also need to remember that regenerative farming has its roots in traditional ecological knowledge. And so this does not come from modern day agriculturalists. These are practices that go back to the indigenous people that promote farming methods that honor the farm workers, that recognize and enrich the land, so it can continue to provide for present and future generations. And so we are borrowing from traditional ecological knowledge, and we need to make sure that we recognize this. And there's a really beautiful quote on the bottom, which I think is really important too, because when we think about farming, there are so few farmers anymore, right? And we need to get people more back onto the land. And so indigenous stewardship requires getting more people out on the land and bringing people into right relationship with the land and with our communities. And so we just need to remember that we are borrowing from indigenous practices when we're bringing back regenerative agriculture, that this is based in traditional ecological knowledge. So I want to talk a little bit now about Farmers Rising. I feel like I'm over my 15 minutes. I have no idea how long I've been talking. So Farmers Rising lifts up the people doing local and regenerative farming, and we build sustainable local food and farm systems that honor the people who work the land. We recognize healthy food as a human right, and we work to dismantle extractive food systems. So I want to talk about kind of our 3 main programmatic foci real quick, and then we can take some questions at the end. So first of all, we have a full-fledged farmer training department. And we work with primarily new and beginning farmers. So that's kind of where we specialize, people who are interested in farming, who don't farm yet and maybe want to step into farming, or who have farmed for a couple years and need some supports. Kind of our flagship program within that is called Farm Beginnings. It's over 100 hours of bringing people together and helping them actually with the business management portion of farming. People get involved in farming because they like to produce. They don't get involved in farming because they like to manage businesses, right? And so that's often where we struggle. We struggle with making sound financial decisions, management decisions on our farms that then lead to us being unable to continue farming, right? Or being just, struggling through it. And so we work with people who have a farm dream. We help them come up with their vision, their mission for their farm. We investigate what types of products they're interested in raising, how they might market those products. We come up with enterprise budgets. So an enterprise is like one crop. So if you're a vegetable farmer and growing 30 crops, you have 30 individual enterprise budgets on your farm. If you're a farmer like me, where I'm just selling grass-fed beef, I have one enterprise budget, right? And so we help them develop their enterprise budgets, and they graduate after 100 hours working with us with a farm business plan that helps guide their decision making into the future so that they can make really sound financial decisions. We have peer-to-peer mentorship opportunities where we offer field days and things on different farms, and we take people around so they can learn from one another. We promote organizational collaboration with other organizations in the state. And we've been working on Illinois Eats, which is the LFPA program, for over a year now, which is wholesale marketing support to farmers. So we've been purchasing food from local farmers, aggregating it, delivering it to food pantries in Winnebago and Boone counties, and the farmers get paid market prices, and the people who patronize the pantries get the amazing benefit of the best, freshest, healthiest food. And it's been an amazing program. Unfortunately, it is scheduled to be canceled as of June 30th. It's been that one that's been going up and down, back and forth. And we're extremely disappointed because it's helping our farmers grow their production. It's helping our farmers learn how to sell into wholesale markets, which is how we really need to grow our local food economy, is to teach farmers to sell wholesale. And it's been providing such healthy, high-quality foods to people in need in our communities. And there's been so many quotes about people who've called up the farmer because they see their name on the package and tell them, oh my gosh, I've never had something so delicious. There's been so many wonderful, beautiful stories that have come out of this program. And we're extremely upset that it's being canceled, obviously, yes.
What's the reason for being canceled?
It's just caught up in kind of the federal, government canceling grants and programs and things like this. And so, excuse me? Yeah, it's been kind of caught up in kind of the DOGE, yep, we're gonna save money and we're gonna cancel and freeze grants and things like that. So it's been actually up and down. It got frozen, and then it got reinstated, and then it got frozen again, then it got canceled, and now it's reinstated through June 30th. There was another $500 million appropriated for this for the following year, nationwide, not just for Illinois, nationwide. And so we are expecting to be able to work on this program through September of 2026. But now that funding, as of today, is canceled. So who knows, right? But it's been an extremely impactful program that we're really upset to see go away. And then finally, we have a new regenerative livestock incubator up in Caledonia. So we're taking about 20 acres of the 70-acre field that I mentioned, and we're offering it to new farmers who don't have access to land. So a lot of people want to get into farming, but they don't have spaces where they can try it out. And so they're able to farm with us on site. We have an incubator manager who can help them. They can utilize our equipment. And we will, it's kind of a low-risk way to start farming. They can develop their customer market, they can try it out, and then after a few years when they, have got it, more figured out, I don't want to say all figured out because I've been farming for a long time and I don't have it all figured out. But then if they want to continue and purchase their own property or rent a farm or something like that, then they can do so at the time. And so we have actually 2 farmers who will be starting to farm on site starting this month. So we're super excited about that as well.
What are they farming?
So the 2 farmers, one is going to be raising broiler chickens, which are meat chickens, and she's going to start with meat birds, and she also wants to raise goats, but I think she's wanting to maybe wait and do the goats next year, first learn the chickens and then add goats next year. And the other farmer is going to be raising laying hens for eggs, and then she'll be using some space for some winter squash production, because currently she's a vegetable farmer, and so she's looking to kind of integrate some livestock into her offerings. She offers a CSA. So we're really excited about this taking off. We also work in do food access work. This work is based here in Rockford at Farmers Rising Rockford, which used to be called Roots and Wings. This is our farm at Black Hawk Courts. We grow over 40 varieties of high quality fruits and vegetables, all organically grown. We've got 2 high tunnels there. We sell about 20 CSA shares. And then we also gift shares to members of the community. We try to hire people from the community, so a lot of our employees and farm assistants live in the community, and so we provide kind of job opportunities there. And then we offer a lot of kind of community building events where food is always a part of it. So we always provide a meal and then do other things like movie nights or game nights and things like that to kind of bring the community together. We also do, so Ted and our other staff at Farmers Rising Rockford also do community gardening projects. We work with local refugees and help teach them how to grow new vegetables in kind of their new country. You know, they're coming to a new area. They don't understand, you know, like what we can raise here. And so we've worked with some local refugees. And so we do a lot of kind of food access work in Rockford. And then you can go to the next one. And then we have a full-fledged education department that we call community programs. And so the basis of this, I would say the vast majority of our programs work with youth. So we have a lot of field trips that come out. We have day field trips. We have overnight field trips. We offer day summer camps. We offer overnight summer camps. And they're really wonderful, interactive ways for youth to come out and spend time on a farm, right? And they get to do chores. We've got goats, chickens, we have pigs in the summer, and so they get to do livestock chores. They get, you know, to kind of learn about sustainable agriculture. They get to do stream study, and they learn about kind of the connections and the importance of sustainable agriculture and the connections with the natural environment while they're out there. We also do adult programs that are culinary focused. We do gardening programs. We offer music festivals. So we do kind of community building programs. So we have a bluegrass festival always in August. I believe it's August 22nd this year. It's like the 3rd Saturday in August. This will be the 3rd year offering that. So it's a full afternoon and evening of live music. We feature all locally produced foods for sale. We have some, you know, we bring out the goats for the kids to play with and do lots of fun activities. So everyone's invited to come out and participate in that. And then we offer like farm stays, customizable programs, et cetera, in Caledonia. So that's kind of a recap. There's other things, obviously, but I feel like I've already gone over my time. I just wanted to say, like, we are in unprecedented times. We've been trying to build up some of our financial sustainability at Farmers Rising, kind of in the nonprofit world. Prior to this year, kind of what was held up was always seek out federal grant funding because that's the most secure, most sustained funding that a nonprofit can find. And so we work under 3 federal grants. And now that's been a bit flipped on its head in the last couple of months, and it's really uncertain how that's going to go moving forward. And it's really caused a lot of kind of chaos and uncertainty at Farmers Rising as to how we can proceed. All of our farmer training work is grant funded. We work under 3 federal grants. Illinois Eats, as I already mentioned, is scheduled to be canceled as of June 30th. So we've already lost 1 part-time employee because of that. We have another full-time and another part-time and a 3rd part-time employee whose jobs will be eliminated at the end of June. We have a whole host of other staff who work under 2 other federal grants. One of our other federal grants supports our work in Rockford with market access and selling market stands at other RHA properties, and then the other one supports our farmer training department. And so it's really difficult for us to kind of pivot so quickly. Sometimes when things change, you know, things are going to change. That's normal. But to have a little bit of an advance warning is always useful as an executive director to be able to plan long term. So we invite you to come out, get involved, consider supporting us. Definitely support your local farmers, purchase local food, look into regenerative farming, continue to come to Sustain Rockford, all of the above. So go solar, you know. But thank you, I appreciate it. Any questions? Okay, yeah.